So in this episode, we are going to delve into this absolutely horrible cult and the absolutely horrible people behind this. We're going to talk about the much covered background of the cult and its victims, but also the not so well covered people behind this wild fucking ride. So Prakhar, what's up? We are coming back after a while to record now.
Very
Yeah,
It's
long
been
time,
what?
almost a month.
yeah,
3
almost a
weeks.
month. Yeah.
3
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah. This is, although after the break, people will hear other episodes, but this is going to be the first one that we record
Hmm.
right
After
after the break. Yeah.
Hmm.
Prakhar, what has been happening in life? What?
N- To be fair, nothing great happened. Matlab, it's been the same. Um, band wise, performance wise, things have been a little bit slow because this is like the off season for
yeah,
artists. So we're not doing any live shows, but we're working on our own music.
Nice.
So that's happening, but
that's
nothing
good.
great, honestly. It's too hot actually in Delhi right now, Delhi NCR. So I don't
Yeah,
want to
yeah, yeah.
step outside. There's literally nothing exciting happening at the moment. So yeah, I don't know
It's
about you guys.
excessively hot.
Yeah,
It is.
very hot.
Yeah.
Oh, Prakhar, did I tell you about this exceptional lady we met on our flight back from Sandy's hometown?
No,
Did I tell you guys?
Oh,
No, no.
no.
Oh God, I have to tell you guys. So we were coming back and we were seated next to this old-ish lady who
Yep.
Sandy described as Indian version of Karen, which I fully agree with. Okay. Uh, she was horrifying. She was absolutely horrifying. So
Mm-hmm.
we were seated and they gave us a menu, right? And they were
Mm-hmm.
like, and the menu card clearly states that you might not have the first choice of your food available, right?
Hmm.
Which is, I don't know why they needed to specifically mention on the menu card because that's how menus work
because
across the
of people
globe.
like her. I'm sure this must
Yeah,
not be the
yeah,
first time.
probably. Yeah,
This is
yeah,
not the first
probably,
time I could
probably.
tell. They are prepared for instances like these because such people are like dime a dozen, literally. There are so too many assholes in the world right now.
Dude, she was such a mean person. So she wanted, there was one which was an Indian preparation of paneer, and then there was
Hmm.
a continental, I think a Thai preparation of vegetables and something else, right? And she wanted that one, right? And that was over. There was
Hmm.
that meal was not available anymore. So then she started screaming at the server who came. She
Stewardess.
Screaming.
stewardess. The
Yes.
Why
stewardess,
scream?
she was, oh, because, oh, she was a nasty person. So she was like, I do not want to have paneer. I want to
Hmm.
have this. Why have you given option in the menu if you're not going to give us this food? And she's like, ma'am, we get a limited number of options, and before you people chose it and it finished, so I do
Hmm.
not have it for you. We have this other one, so you can have that. And she created an entire ruckus, dude, like she's shouting at the top of her voice, saying that this is how you treat premium economy clients, which is just a wild thing to say because I travel premium economy, and I take premium economy only because I want to miss queues. It is just
Yeah.
a way to make us poor people feel a little better. It doesn't really. It's not business class. But anyway, and she was not treating us badly. Like she was treating us nicely. There was
Hmm.
there was no problem with the behavior of the staff, of the crew, right? Like they were in fact extremely patient and they were so nice to everybody. And this lady just lost her shit. And after like 15 minutes of shouting, she's like, I'm lactose intolerant. I cannot have paneer. So, like, firstly, you mentioned that how is she supposed to know? She's not going to
Yeah.
get a, she's not, I mean, she's not going to dream up a medical condition that you have. You can, while booking your tickets, you can mention what kind of meal you want, and you could have mentioned that you have allergies or something.
Also, a couple
Or
of
you
things
also
You,
get like
that I
discount.
found really funny. One, every single time, every 2 minutes, she would threaten them, flight stewards, with I'll go on social media and I'll complain against you to Air India, against all, I'll lodge a complaint, whatever. I've managed social media for a lot of such clients. No one takes you seriously. Okay. Like there is someone like us over there just forwarding these to someone who literally doesn't give a flying fuck about what your complaints
Yeah.
are. And secondly, she was threatening them to create a hue and cry while in the middle of creating a hue and cry.
yeah.
Like,
Sandy is like, this is like threatening, I will shoot you while shooting you. Like, what is the, what's going on? But my God, it was, I was just thinking of the kind of shit that consumer facing service people need to
yeah,
face. Like, when we get terrible clients,
Yeah.
if you have a boss like Sandy, they will be like, listen, fuck right off. I don't need your business. Which Sandy has been doing since forever, right? And we have continued that, right? Like where we have seen clients are absolutely unbearable, we've been like, you know what, you can't behave like this with us. We are find somebody else to work
Yeah.
with. But consumer facing service industry
yeah,
people don't have
it's
that
thankless
option.
job.
Like they had to entertain her, dude. But I really hope they spit on her food. I
Ah.
really fucking hope they spit on her food
Also,
because it
like
was
just
so
to close
annoying.
this off, after the flight landed, one of the first
I,
announcements they make is people who require wheelchairs and such, please stay seated. The wheelchair person will come, and that's usually what
Yeah, they
happens
always do.
across the board.
Yeah, they always do.
She
Yeah,
was
yeah.
one of the first people to get off the flight. Immediately as the flight landed, she got up and started walking to the exit. She got off the flight, and after while standing there, she started screaming at the people, "Ki, why isn't my wheelchair here? What's a terrible service here?" Wo. I'm like, bro, one of the first things they announce after landing is the wheelchair people who require a wheelchair, please fucking stay seated. We'll bring the wheelchair to your seat. She didn't stay seated. She walked to the exit and started screaming at them that you're not giving me a wheelchair. I'm like, bro, what the fuck is wrong with you?
after a point of time, after things calm down for like half an hour, Sandy looks at me and he's like, dude, her children must be so unhappy.
What? Don't you agree? She must be a terrible mother, dude. I don't usually like to make sweeping judgments like that, but that very small window into her life and character. My God, she must have traumatized her children to no end. So,
Okay. Speaking of terrible, terrible women, this segue I had not planned and it
Oh,
came up.
good.
Speaking of terrible women, have you guys heard of this cult that held group orgasm sessions for women? Group orgasm sessions.
That sounds
I've
interesting.
never heard.
Tell me
Yeah, it's
more.
Yeah,
called
but
OneTaste. It's been covered in the media in the last few years extensively. Okay. So they branded sexual exploitation as orgasmic meditation or oming. OM.
of course there's a
uh,
there's a bad side of this. I was
oh, there's
waiting.
a terrible
Yeah,
side of this.
yeah,
There's a terrible side of
yeah.
this. Okay.
Why does this sound like something that like something happened at Osho ashram, you know?
Yeah, yeah, a very similar group of people only,
Yeah,
no? They're
yeah,
all
yeah, yeah.
related to each
Fair.
other somehow.
Ah, fair, fair, fair.
So what One Taste says on its website about orgasmic meditation, it is a partnered practice in which one person strokes the upper left quadrant of another person's clitoris for exactly 15 minutes,
What? Okay,
while
wait.
both
What is upper left quadrant? And how do you?
upper left upper left of the woman. So if I'm looking like this, it has to be my upper left. Okay?
Okay.
But how do you divide a clitoris into like quadrants and then rub
Yes,
specific
that's
that
what is a
small
tiny
area?
fucking part, but you just put your hand on the corner of the upper left corner, okay? Your finger. Uh, the website continues. While both place full attention on the point of contact, noticing what they feel, what emerges is not performance or pleasure in the conventional sense. It is the dissolution of the boundary between self and other, a state of interconnected awareness that mystics have described for millennia and neuroscientists are only beginning to map. Okay, this is
Why?
very,
Why just 15
very pseudo.
minutes?
Dude, there is like any pseudoscience, they put a random number to some things. They make things sound scientific, and then they say that science is just catching up. Mystics and our religion and our ancestors knew
Science is
about
just
this
catching
forever.
up.
What is
Yeah,
this weird
fully.
surgical fingering, dude? Like your
Yeah,
upper
right?
left
It's
quadrant and
horrible.
you know what?
Yeah,
And that too
and
for
this is,
15 minutes.
I
How
mean,
am I supposed to be so precise for 15 minutes straight?
they set a timer.
Alarm.
They set a
No,
timer. They
Yes,
set an
really?
the
alarm.
timer is the
Yes.
easier one. I'm talking about the precision. Only the upper left quadrant I have to sort of like rub around. What if my hand goes to the lower left quadrant?
Then you
No,
start
because
again for 15
you're
minutes.
not, this is almost like a surgical procedure. You have to be very careful. Okay.
Yeah,
Anyway,
thanks.
Who's
now
keeping
one
track?
taste scope. Can I proceed?
There are a
you,
lot of
your,
questions you
your
can.
questions will be answered. It's a long episode. Okay. OneTaste co-founder and former CEO Nicole Daedone and sales head Rachel Sherwitz. They were recently found guilty of forced labor conspiracy. That's how this entire thing has now blown up. Like it's in media today, like recently, right? Daedone was sentenced to 9 years in prison and Sherwitz to 6.5 years. And there's been a lot of coverage over the years about this. There's been a Netflix documentary called Orgasm Inc., the story of One Taste. There's been a book called Empire of Orgasm by Bloomberg news reporter Ellen Huet. Ellen Huet was, this Bloomberg's news reporter was the one who first broke the story of One Taste being a cult, right? And there's a BBC podcast documentary called The
Hmm.
Orgasm Cult. And these are the most famous ones. There's a lot going on, right? So in this episode, we are going to delve into this absolutely horrible, horrible cult and the absolutely horrible people behind this. We're going to talk about the much covered background of the cult and its victims, but also the not so well covered people behind this wild fucking ride. Apart from, of course, Nicole Daedone, she has been covered well enough. Apart from that, there are a bunch of other people as well, right? And this one absolutely goes to dark fucking places. Like, it is, we will not have the time to
Of
do
course.
all
Of course.
not witness, victim testimonies and everything. It's bad. I listened to the entire BBC documentary. I read like a bunch of the reports that were coming out at that point of time. It's distressing, extremely distressing, right? So we will be getting into
Did
that.
this spread across?
Oh, it is everywhere in the world.
Did
No, only the lower
oh
left quadrant.
Upper left.
Yeah, upper left quadrant.
upper
Yeah,
left?
yeah. It didn't spread across, apparently.
Okay, so now the origin story of this cult, right? It was founded by Nicole Daedone and another gentleman called Robert Kandell in 2004. It's quite old, more than 20 years old, right? In, of course, San Francisco, right? And
Hmm.
it promoted itself as a sexually focused wellness education company that offered hands on classes on orgasmic meditation, OM, which
Of course,
involved stroking a
hands-on.
woman. Just-
Yeah, very hands-on. Very hands-on indeed. Yeah.
it basically generated revenue by providing courses, coaching, home events, and also less publicized courses in sexual practices, like individual one-on-one, you know, in exchange for a fucking fee, right? And the fees like
It
range from a few
would you
hundred
be surprised
dollars.
if they actually called it fucking fee of the one-on-one sessions? This is teeming with so many jokes, dude. Every sentence is an opportunity for a new joke here. There's so much going on.
The name is also weird. One taste. Sheesh.
Oh, that is OneTaste background is what Daedone mentioned in her TEDx talk.
Of course, there
That
had to be a TEDx.
she mentions that just as the ocean has one taste that is of salt, sexual healing has only one taste, which is one taste. I don't know what that means. I have a lot of this, what they say is absolutely wild, dude. It is, it's crazy. It's legitimately one of the craziest cults I have come across. Right. But yeah, their courses range from a few $100s to there are people who have paid like $60,000, $70,000, completely gone bankrupt. If you listen to the BBC documentary, you will hear witnesses' accounts and sorry, victims' accounts where they have lost everything. They are still paying off debts. It's bad, right? Now,
Yeah.
I want to describe an Om session to you, what the session looks like, right? And this is from San Francisco Weekly, and it's an article from 2007. 2007 is basically the time when the coverage of orgasmic meditation was still quite positive, of one taste
Mm-hmm.
and oming, right? So I'm quoting from that. The students had already taken off their clothes and slipped into robes when they lined up in two rows facing each other. They stood close in the softly lit room with seven women on one side and seven men just across from them. What you will, I'm breaking the quote for a second. What you will note throughout this, all of the things that we talk about is that it is very, very heterosexual people focused,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is always women's orgasms, and it is always which I like in early 2000s. I agree that there was very little discussion about women's orgasms, but it was always men giving them the orgasm,
Mm.
right? I come back to the quote, to the article. The men would soon practice stroking the women, but first they had some warm up exercises to do. A sultry voiced, earthy brunette named Shara Ojen introduced the group to the practice of obnosing, or noticing the obvious, which involves looking at someone and listing off their physical characteristics. A steady hum filled the quiet yoga like studio as each man gazed at the woman facing him and rattled off his observations: the freckles on a cheek, the shape of an eyebrow, the way a band of color stretched around a woman's pupils. The exercise helped them practice for later when the class would shift its focus to obnosing female genitalia. I don't know why obnosing had to become a word, because observation is very much a word. So observing would have been fine, but it's a trend here.
I'll be very
Anyway,
honest. I genuinely thought obnosing was before we get to the one taste, then we go to the one smell. That's what I thought.
Yeah, obnosing by nose. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Same. I also had the same
I didn't
direction.
even
Yes.
think of that.
Yeah.
You go and sniff around first, and then you start with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
upper left
like
quadrant or
a
whatever the fuck for tasting.
like a
You
dog.
know, I
It's
guess you sniff
so
butts
That
and
makes
strange.
more
everything.
sense.
Anyway, the article continues. Then, when it came for the stroking exercise to begin, each woman stretched out an arm, and the man across from her took it and cradled it gently in his own. The sleeves of their robes, whether silky or fuzzy, pink or baby blue, were pushed back to expose the soft bare skin on the inner side of the forearm. The stroke is a key aspect of the practice known as orgasmic meditation or Om, which is designed to help people tap into sensual energy through stimulation of the clitoris. The practice is at the heart of the OneTaste Urban Retreat Center in Soma, a shared living community where the stroking class is being taught. We will talk about this shared living community a little bit. As you can imagine, this was a really fucked up community. This commune was not great, as all cults communities are, right?
Yeah.
Orgasmic meditation is devoted to female orgasm. After all, the women are typically the ones being stroked. But the idea is that the strokers, who are often men, but maybe women too. This is what the article says, but there were no women. Like victims have recounted multiple times that there were only men, right? The idea is that the strokers are also fulfilled through what community members called pleasure by proxy, as well as by enjoying the sensations in their bodies as they stroke. There are courses in how to satisfy a woman with hands on instruction designed to show what she wants and how to give it to her. One class, for example, is titled 10 Women Want You to Know How to Handle a Woman's Pussy. But for now, it was arms only. The men are going to stroke it as you would the clit during an om, Ojin instructed. Like you would a cat, added Nicole Daedone, who was leading the class. With 4 fingers busy stroking, Ojin walked the room inspecting everyone's technique. Although at OneTaste they say sensuality is about 80% learning to navigate resistance and only 20% technique. She urged the men to shut their eyes and feel how much pleasure they could extract from the arm stroking exercise. Did they want to change the speed, change the pressure? How much sensation could they feel? Next, the women were encouraged to share. One felt an opening in her throat. Another felt a quivering. I feel a warmth in my pussy, yet another woman said. They don't say vagina here. They prefer pussy and cock because, in the parlance of the people running the place, those words are more chargy or full of energy. This little exercise was just a flavor of what was to come in the nearly 10-hour, $195 introductory workshop at One Taste. Remember, this is 2007. Over the next few hours, those attending would watch an orgasmic meditation demonstration and, if they wished, pair up for more hands on exercise. During the lunch break, they could eat anything they wanted so long as it was fed to them by someone else. The day long course would literally climax with multiple climaxes, at least for the women, and no, they weren't faking it. This is this is I mean just a part of the article, okay? And I just wanted to share it for the description. While I was going through all of these, I was like, this just sounds like normal, very, very normal sexual experiences. You don't need om for this. You need either a vibrator or just a good partner, right? And nobody needs to practice on your arm. I, I mean, I don't know what to say. Nobody needs to do that. It's wild. They seem to have taken what most people just naturally learn and they have and learn by communicating with the woman they are with and they have made this into a full-blown course. It's
Full
wild. It is
blown
absolutely
business.
wild.
Forget a course, it's a business.
It's a full-blown business. It's a cult. Yeah.
Wow.
And in business, at least you pay your employees. This is a cult where they all they did was
I
just
have a
take money.
theory. I have a theory.
Hmm.
This was a Tinder before actual Tinder. They're just matching people up to have sex there, basically.
But no, they forced you to match with people. That also happened.
Yeah, I'm only looking at the silver
This was
lining here.
nothing like there's not a single silver lining. There's nothing there. It just keeps getting worse. I fully appreciate talking about women's orgasm, especially early 2000s, where it was not talked about as a normal thing, right? Like now we don't talk about it because I'm assuming that it has become a normal thing. At least I really hope so. Except in the manosphere where they believe that women don't orgasm. But that's why it's a fringe thing, right? That in the
Hmm.
normal course of things, we know women orgasm many more times than men do. People with clitoris just have a better time with it as long as you are using the right tools, whether that is a vibrator or a sex toy or you have a good partner, whatever it is, you're a generous partner. Like, I don't know. It just seems like in the early 2000s it was ripe for this kind of exploitation, and that's why that happened, right? Because we just didn't talk enough. Or maybe that is my bias, because I was in the early 2000s, I was in my late teens, and I was entering my 20s. So it, no, early 2000s, I was not late teens, early teens I was. So at that time, orgasm was not being talked about. So maybe that's what I, maybe it's my bias, I don't know. But the reality is that the cult fully exploited a lot of women's sexual trauma, just regressive upbringing. uh, they just exploited it, and they made their lives so much more worse, right? So this was one of the workshops that we talked about, that the cult conducted to make money. But like all other cults, like, we talked about, there was also a commune, right? That community living that the article briefly mentioned. Now, people joining the cult would be paired up forcefully as research partners. While the positive coverage was going on, they said that people could choose research partners and all. But the BBC documentary interviews quite a lot of victims, and they all mentioned that they were forced. They were forced by Nicole. Or in a lot of interviews, they also said that she heavily implied. But when a cult leader heavily implies, that's that's forcing,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Nicole Daedone would decide who was going to partner with whom, and often she would put people together who had some kind of, they were living together, right? There were bound to be tiffs and fights and arguments, and she would pair them together. And these guys would have to absolutely own each other and have sex with each other every single day. It was a literal rule, right? So the same SF Weekly article that I was quoting from, that mentions this. The community typically comes together to practice orgasmic meditation 3 times each weekday at 7 a.m. That's the big one where just about everybody goes. 2 p.m. and about 6:45 p.m. The afternoon and evening OMs tend to be a bit smaller due to work and other obligations. The schedule differs slightly on weekends, with a 7:45 a.m. OM session to allow community members to sleep in. Every day. You have to. Right? And when they talk about this work and other obligations, this is 2007 article, right? So they don't quite know what is going on completely, even though there were enough indications. They were literally like Yelp reviews saying, oh, this is a cult and everything. Yeah, fully at that point of time. But this coverage was quite positive. And this work that the article mentions, the BBC documentary and the Netflix documentary, they get quite in depth in it. We will not, because we do not have the time to do that. But basically, this work was them, the commune members, selling these courses and everything to more people. So it was fully running a pyramid scheme. But these guys, they were not getting paid.
Mhm.
Okay, and there was in the BBC documentary, a victim also mentioned that he was the only one who was asking for payment, and when he asked for payment, he was demeaned, and he was like they were telling him that he was not serious about this, and all of that, so guilting him and shaming him. So it was bad, right? This BBC documentary also, while interviewing multiple victims, it showed how the women had joined OneTaste because they had gone through sexual trauma earlier in life, and believed Daedone when she sold oming as a way to take control of your sexuality, right? And to heal from that trauma. Like, there was a lot of sexual abuse cases where people were
Mm.
trying to recover from it. There were cases where women could not have sex anymore because of the intense abuse they went through as children, right? But this compulsory participation in sex every single day obviously traumatized them even further, right? Who'd have thunk, right? It is just crazy, right?
Yeah.
And when this heavily publicized case against Daedone was going on, we'll also get into the case in just a while. The victims experiences and testimonies were obviously very much a part of it. And I'm going to quote just one testimony. I do not want to get into all of it because, one, it has been very, very well covered. And you all can check out the documentaries that I was mentioning, read the book that I was talking about. It's very well documented. But just so that you understand how harrowing it is, I am quoting one case. It has been covered by New York Post. Usually I wouldn't rely on New York Post at all. And I thought of, removing this. But then the other testimonies that I found, they were extremely long and we don't have time to get into it. So I'm going to give New York Post the benefit of it, a benefit of doubt, and assume that they quoted correctly. It says the company enlisted one employee, a rape victim, to reenact the incident before a crowd for a taboo course, performing oral sex on a partner while being told, "I love you," as her real rapist had, prosecutors said. Can you believe it? Can you imagine the kind of trauma that inflicts on a person? It's harrowing. Like, it is the victims' testimonies in the documentaries as well as in court, absolutely harrowing, right? Like, I don't know how they got away with it for so long. Now, despite the very clear cult-like functioning, OneTaste got massive positive coverage in the early 2000s. The SF Weekly article, which is now archived, is not the only one, right? And we will talk about that once we come back from this small break. I think all of us could do with just a little bit of break from this insane story. So we will come back after this quick ad break. All right, we are back. We were talking about the very, very undeserved positive coverage that this cult got in the early 2000s, right? They were not popular in the early 2000s. They were not seeing people walk in. There was barely any attendance. It was not a big deal at all, right? And then New York Times did a full profile in 2009. And as usual, New York Times kind of continues to contribute to really terrible things ongoing in the world. I don't know what the fuck is going on with them. But that was the case with early 2000s as well. And they did this full profile, and the article was titled "The Pleasure Principle." This is what skyrocketed OneTaste to success. And it talked about OneTaste as if just because it was in San Francisco, it was the most obvious thing ever. It didn't challenge much. It had a part where it was like, I will get to that, where it was mentioning, the article was mentioning that it sounds cultish and everything, and there are accusations. I fully forgot that word. There are accusations against them for being a cult. Nothing, no critical thinking was then applied. It was just taken as is, and there was fully just positive coverage. And this article actually changed the whole thing for OneTaste. So I'm going to quote certain parts from the article. It says, "OneTaste is but the latest stop on this sexual underground, weaving together strands of radical individual freedom, Eastern spirituality, and feminism. The notion of a San Francisco sex commune focused on female orgasm is part of a long and rich history of women being public and empowered about their sexuality," said Elizabeth A. Armstrong, an associate professor of sociology at Indiana University who has studied San Francisco's sexual subcultures. Even in 2009, there was some discussion of it being cult-like, but they brushed right past it, like I mentioned, right? So it says, as with many a commune before it, the leader of OneTaste, Ms. Daedone, a polarizing personality whom admirers venerate as a sex diva, although some former members say she has cult-like powers over her followers. They say she sometimes strongly suggested who should pair off with whom romantically. There was always a pushing of people's boundaries, says Judy Silber, who lived at OneTaste for 3.5 years and left last fall. We all knew it was a hardcore place and we came to play hard. I have a problem with the narrative of this being feminist, right? Feminism has, in terms of sexuality, has always been taking control of your sexuality. It has not been
Mm.
taking control of your sexuality from one person and giving it up to another person. I mean, I don't know what Elizabeth A. Armstrong, who was fucking teaching sociology at a university, why, she thought that giving up control was being empowered. That's a wild fucking thing to assume. And it really pissed me off that a professor was saying this, because that also meant that there was influence on really young people, people
Mm.
who don't know how to, their brains are not yet fully developed to make cognitive, well decided, like they're still making impulsive decisions. And people who can influence them, their professors, are saying shit like this. It really fucking pissed me off, right? So this article, I strongly recommend reading it, because oh my God, full of snafus. Like the amount New York Times praised OneTaste. I don't want to get into it because it's very annoying, but I do recommend reading it. Right. And by this time, Nicole Daedone was also doing what a lot of up and coming famous people do. Right. She published her first book, Slow Sex, in 2012, and since then published a bunch others, even after the case was filed against her. Right.
Was it New York Times bestseller?
I did not I did not look up the book, but I will not be surprised if it is. Okay. And as you might have guessed, like slow sex basically draws parallels between slow sex and the slow food movement. Of course, I haven't read this fuck all woman's book, but from what I know, slow food movement is about sourcing food that is grown locally and sustainably. And I don't think it's very easy to have sex which is not local. So I genuinely don't know what the fuck she means by slow sex. And she has been, by the way, featured in like a bunch of other quack things. Have you all heard of the 4 hour body? The 4 day work week, 4 hour body, all of this is, it's basically, there's this person, I like fully another scam artist who promotes 4 week workday, which I like, but he promotes this as the solution to everything, which is a wild fucking thing to do. And then he also wrote a book called The 4 Hour Body, which is basically how you can build a good body by working out 4 hours a week, which does seem like what people do anyway. That is 3 to 4 days of working out in a gym that a week. That's
Uh,
normal working out, right? So he also in his book talked about her, like she got a lot of shady people supporting her, right? And she got quite far in life by bullshitting, right? She also gave a TEDx talk in 2011 called Orgasm, the Cure for Hunger. She basically talks about how women have, they are doing so many things today. uh, they are taking control of a bunch of things in her life, but they are still hungry, and that hunger can be solved, it can be quenched, whatever it is, by orgasming. And I agree that orgasming is a wonderful thing. It is amazing. It doesn't fucking need a whole organization around it. Like it, it's not that difficult, friend. Like just find better partners. I feel like this woman had
Or a
terrible
washing
partners.
machine.
Washing machine does nothing. Vibrators, vibrators, women, ladies, please choose good vibrators. There are so many options. I feel like Daedone just never had good sex, and when she did, it blew her mind. So anyway, right now, also as all things
I'm
just
telling you why
slightly,
she
is
never
she?
had good sex was because she just kept rubbing the fucking upper left quadrant. If she had just rubbed the whole fucking thing, she would have had a better experience.
now as all things just slightly or completely off, Daedone and OneTaste was also endorsed by, I want you to guess this. Think of
Donald Trump.
think of the no, think of a woman who is going to endorse a woman from US who's going to endorse the most voodoo-y and most new age fuckery.
I
It's
mean, there
right
are
there.
way too many to name. Ellen DeGeneres, Oprah,
Gwyneth
who are
Paltrow.
Gwyneth Paltrow. Okay, fine.
Oh.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I found her podcast, so Goop podcast, interviewed Daedone in 2018. Eh?
Mm-hmm.
And she was also one of the panelists in Paltrow's event called In Goop Health. Just fucking wild universe out there. My God, I don't know what they are doing. Right. But what I found interesting was that OneTaste was actually exposed as a cult because of an investigation by Bloomberg journalist that I mentioned, Ellen Huet, right? The
Mm-hmm.
one who also wrote the book Empire of Orgasm. And this expose was in June 2018. And Paltrow's interview of Daedone in her podcast was released in December 2018. So it speaks like volumes about the
Mm-hmm.
amount of research that went into this episode, right? Like just within 6 months of it being exposed as a cult, you put out an episode fully praising her, interviewing her. Wild, just. And the episode is full of just pseudoscience, absolute nonsense. She says shit like, in the 6th minute, you reach the stroker and the strokee both reach the same amount of pleasure, and there's a connection. And they also have, I don't know how they have done it. They also have like research backed articles, like peer reviewed articles. I have not gotten into the peer reviewed papers that they have launched on this particular practice,
Mm-hmm.
because one, I it really fucking annoyed me and there was so much more to cover, so I did not go into that. Maybe some other day I will check that out. Secondly, if you're reading that, if because OneTaste is still functioning, I feel a sort of responsibility to say this. If you think that this is science backed, the fact that orgasming is healthy has never been debated. Like, it's never, not true. But you don't need to give your money to an organization that gets people to scientifically do this to you, because there's no scientific backing to that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? By all means, please have orgasms. They are great. Right? So anyway, the case that the case that we are talking about, that eventually got uh, Daedone and Sherwitz, the sales head, sentenced, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Bloomberg report that I mentioned was honestly the beginning of the end for OneTaste and Daedone. Well, not really OneTaste. We are going to get into that. OneTaste is unfortunately still functioning, right? Uh, After this report, and I don't know honestly if it was a consequence of this report or if this was already in the works, but after this report, the FBI started investigating the company over claims of sex trafficking, prostitution, and violations of labor law. Interestingly, in 2017, Daedone had already sold off her stake in OneTaste, but she seems to be still weirdly too involved in the company. Like, as late as in 2022, 2023, she was still seen in company events and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Right? But in 2025, Daedone and head of sales of OneTaste, Rachel Sherwitz, were found guilty. And in March 26, just a couple of months back, they were finally sentenced. Right? And I want to read out the USA's Department of Justice report on this case a little bit. Right? It says from approximately 2006 through May 2018, Daedone and Sherwitz orchestrated a scheme to obtain the labor and services of multiple young women who had turned to OneTaste seeking healing and spiritual growth by coercing them to perform labor, including sexual labor, for the defendant's benefit. OneTaste advertised that its courses and teachings could heal past sexual trauma and dysfunction. In reality, Daedone and Sherwitz used abusive and manipulative tactics designed to control OneTaste members by making them emotionally and psychologically dependent on OneTaste, including encouraging them to incur debt by opening lines of credit to finance the expensive courses, subjecting them to constant surveillance in communal homes, collecting sensitive information about their prior trauma and sexual histories, depriving them of sleep, and subjecting them to sexual abuse. Once they had secured the loyalty and indebtedness of certain OneTaste members, Daedone and Sherwitz engaged in exploitative labor practices. They directed OneTaste members to work long hours, often 7 days per week, with little or no compensation. This work included manual labor and the provision of sexual services. For example, Daedone and Sherwitz coerced their victims to engage in sexual acts with OneTaste's then current and prospective investors, clients, and employees for the company's financial benefit. 3 witnesses testified at trial about how they were coerced into becoming handlers for OneTaste's initial investor, who was also Daedone's boyfriend, which required them to live with him, perform sex acts at his direction, and provide domestic labor for him. Multiple other witnesses testified that they were coerced under threat of termination, demotion, ostracism, and financial and spiritual ruin by Daedone and Sherwitz into performing various sex acts with OneTaste's potential clients and investors. It was fully a racket. Right? It was terrible. In 2017, Daedone sold OneTaste, a company built on the backs of coerced and unpaid or substantially underpaid labor, for $12 million. So that's how the judge in this case asked Daedone to provide, like, compensate the victims for $12 million, because she was like, you made this money, now give it back to people who actually made it for you. Right? Now, there is a lot more to cover about the case itself, right? Like the victims and how OneTaste function, what was going on behind it, what people's individual experiences were. But like I mentioned, you can find all of that in detailed coverage that I mentioned earlier, right? You can listen to people talk about their own experiences in their own words. I want to instead talk about the people behind and associated with this insane fucking cult, right? Like, absolutely, people who have not deserved the attention that I think they should have deserved, and that they did deserve. The coverage is very, very limited. It's very disappointing from the coverage that I have read that they have focused on the 2 people who have been convicted, but there was a whole system that was holding them up that continues to function, and we are not doing anything about it. There's very little coverage about that. So we will get into that, but we are going to take a short break again. This is essentially the last section of this podcast. We're going to talk about the people and then wrap up. So once you're back from the break, we're going to talk about the terrible people, just giving you a chance to prepare yourselves for this. All right, we are back, and we are going to start off with one well-covered person, Nicole Daedone, because, I mean, even though there's enough and more coverage about her, I think some of it deserves mention. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that briefly, right? Now, Daedone was born in California in 1967 and was raised primarily by her single mother. Her father was not a great presence in her life. When she was in her 20s, her father went to prison for molesting 2 girls. Daedone has
Okay.
said that he didn't molest her, But also, apparently, in the book, but again, I have not read the book, I'm just reading from other reporting. In the book by Ellen Huet, she also says that she seduced her father when she was 6 years old. I mean, seems like her father molested her also. I genuinely don't know.
Mm.
Okay. So, what happened after her father went to prison is reported in the same SF Weekly article that I talked about right at the top, right? The 2007 article. It says Daedone, who was born in Los Gatos, wasn't planning on becoming a sensuality guru. She had been on a doctoral track with an emphasis in semantics at San Francisco State University and was helping run 111 Minna Street Gallery when at 27 she got a telephone call that her father had only hours to live. She rushed to the hospital where he died within 2 days. Everything cracked in me, she said, her voice shaking. She prayed to God to take her to or reveal her purpose in life. I just want to say, I wish she had been taken, you know, if she had died, so many people would have been spared. But apparently, she found her purpose in life instead. So we're going to get into that. Around that time, she met an unusual older woman at a rave who kept telling her to call if she ever needed anything. Daedone showed up at her door, told her what had happened to her dad, and for the next 3 years studied with the woman at what she calls as Mystery School of Theosophical Studies. I no idea what this is, okay? Eventually gravitating towards Buddhism. She was
Mhm.
celibate for more than a year during her studies. Celibate for more than a year is not a great sacrifice, but anyway. When her teachers asked her how she wanted to bring what she had learned back into the world, she debated heavily between Buddhism and the pursuit of more earthly pleasures. I knew, though, that Buddhism would say no to sensuality, Daedone said, but sensuality wouldn't say no to Buddhism. I have no idea what she's on about. Like, this is a pattern with Daedone. She just speaks in things in like really confusing verbiage and nobody knows what she's fucking talking about. Right. And I feel like that's also a very cult leader sort of,
Mm.
just make it sound intelligent. It doesn't actually have to be.
That is
How she
a that
came
is
up.
a ploy used by a lot of these life gurus and
Yeah,
people
yeah,
like Jay
Yeah.
Shetty and all of these people. They
of
just come
course.
across as intelligent, but basically they are using a lot of words to basically communicate nothing. It's just a bunch of
Yeah,
words which just sound smart together. That's all.
correct.
And
Correct.
smart to dumb people, maybe.
Yeah,
Not
like Jay
necessarily,
Shetty in
Prakar.
even
Also,
Diary of a CEO. I don't know if you've heard of that. There's
yeah.
Stephen
Yeah, yeah.
Howlett, I think that's his name. Like all of these people, they talk very slowly, very calmly, and they come across as extremely intelligent to a lot of people. But basically, if you listen very closely, they're saying a whole load of nothing, So
I would just
I
like
don't know.
to mention this that it is not dumb people who fall victims to this. It is vulnerable people.
Hmm.
It
Fair.
extremely smart people who have been going through shit in life, right? They have come across cults just at the wrong time period and people have taken
Hmm.
advantage of them. It's not black and white. You cannot, in fact it is categorically false that they are dumb people, right? So the victims, and I know that this impression exists, and that's why a lot of victims are unable to come forward about their experiences with cults. And that's why cults become successful for so long because people get
Hmm.
ashamed of falling into this trap. But a
Talking
lot
of
of
cults,
times,
do you guys remember that episode of Monk where he joins a cult and he
oh,
becomes an
yes,
integral
yes,
part of the cult?
yes,
Right? And we
Yes.
all we all agree that Monk as a character is extremely brilliant, right? He's one of the most
yes.
Hmm.
intelligent people. But even he falls prey to that because he's a very vulnerable person underneath all
Yeah.
of those.
Yeah, he was very susceptible to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that happens more often than not. That is what happens. They
Hmm.
catch you at a very, very vulnerable point in your life. Anyway, how she came across orgasmic meditation, how Daedon came across orgasmic meditation, or honestly just seems to me like a good old orgasm, is also quite disturbing, right? The 2008 article of New York Times, the one that sent OneTaste skyrocketing into fame, I'm quoting from that now. It says, her pathway back to life was initially Buddhism, which she pursued with a vengeance. I just want to pause here for a second. Nobody describes practicing Buddhism as pursuing with a vengeance. It is literally the opposite of what it is supposed to be. But sure. Which she pursued as a vengeance, intending to live in a Zen community. But at a party in 1998, she met a Buddhist who had a practice in what he called contemplative sexuality. He invited her to lie down unclothed, set a timer, and while stroking her, proceeded to narrate in tender detail the beauty he saw, the colors that went from coral to deep rose to pearlescent pink. Basically, he's describing her vulva to her. He's saying, oh, this is coral and you have deep rose and it's beautiful and everything. I just broke open and the feeling was pure and clean, Miss Daedone said. In a strange way, I think at that moment, I decided to live. Okay. And in the TED talk, actually, the TEDx talk, she actually describes this more in detail. She talks about how her mind was wandering initially. And then when she talks about breaking open, it's basically she went blank. Her mind went blank while she was having an orgasm. Which, if you know anything about orgasms, if you have had any, that's what happens. You're not thinking of
Yeah.
shit while you are having an orgasm. And a strange man is rubbing your clitoris. Obviously, you're thinking, your mind is wandering. You're thinking of like a bunch of shit. You're thinking of what the fuck is happening? Why am I agreeing to this? She just describes an orgasm. And it's so wild to me that when New York Times was publishing this, not a single person went, isn't this just an orgasm? What is happening? This doesn't need any specific practice. This just needs you to include maybe foreplay in your sex. I don't know what's going on. Nobody said it. It's wild. But it is also true to New York Times specific brand of journalism, which is question nothing. Uh, just see and regurgitate. So yeah, that was about Nicole Daedone. A lot more about her online, but I wanted specifically to talk about this wild beginning of hers. And now we are going to talk about the less talked about people in this entire saga, right? Now we come to the man that Daedone has said is her mentor. His name is Ray Vetterlin. There is suspiciously little about him in credible sources that I could find, but reports about Daedone mention that Vetterlin is well known in the sex circles of San Francisco. I just want to mention there are sex circles in San Francisco that are, from what I have read, genuinely sex positive, right? Genuinely accepting people for their different sexualities, their different sexual preferences, their experiences, providing safe spaces to experiment. All of that is there. This kind of sex circle is not sex positive sex circle. This is exploitative sex circle. And from what little I found, Vetterlin was the disciple of Victor Barranco, the founder of Lafayette Morehouse. For the uninitiated, Lafayette Morehouse is the OG sex cult in the US, right? I highly recommend reading up about Lafayette Morehouse, right? I found an interesting article by journalist Don Lattin. He spent some time with Daedone, and in his own article, he runs his own like blog of sorts where he writes about the reports that he investigates on. He says they had tapped into something at Ray's house and had begun to tweak it and work with it, Nicole recalled. Ray had this truly exquisite ability to see what was inside of me with such approval and just draw it out of me. He also had an incredible gift in terms of stroking. He brought that, and I brought mindfulness. Ray also brought Nicole to Lafayette Morehouse to meet his mentor, Victor Barranco. Victor Barranco is the co-founder of Lafayette Morehouse. To meet his mentor, Victor Barranco, shortly before Barranco died of pancreatic cancer. Vic said, "What do you want?" I gave him my usual Buddhist answer, which was to be enlightened. Barranco rolled his eyes and asked again. "I want to do what you do," Nicole replied, "but my own version of it." Fully just a little tiny party of people who are exploiting each other and who encourage people to exploit other people. Very, very disturbing group this was, right? So what does Veteran do? Honestly, I couldn't tell you. Right. I have no idea how he makes a living. I have no idea what he actually does. As I mentioned right off the top, there's disappointingly little coverage of these people who seem to just form the entire ecosystem around Daedone and Sherwitz, right? So I found a podcast on love making, that's what they call it, that interviewed Veteran. And the interviewer said in her introduction of this man, Ray is known as one of the greatest givers of this pleasure alive today. He began studies of extended orgasm with Moore University in 1960s and completed their most rigorous training program. Did you know there is a training program of extended orgasm? I didn't know this. Uh, she continues,
Does he
what
by
a
any chance have a Guinness Book of World Record entry of like the most sperm ever ejaculated or something? What is
ew,
this rigorous program that we don't know? Like, what was the outcome of the rigorous program? I'm assuming it was a shitload of cum.
ew. Why are we, ew. Anyway, I'm choosing to ignore that because I don't want that image in my head. She continues, what a distinction. Ray, who is turning 81 this week, continues to give women mind-blowing orgasms. He is considered legendary in his abilities, and I've heard that Ray is getting better all the time. In case you're wondering, 81 giving mind-blowing orgasms to women, we are again talking about like literally rubbing the clitoris. And he says some truly insane fucking shit in that podcast episode, which gives quite an insight into this man, right? So I'm going to quote from particular parts. If you want to listen to the entire episode, I will link it in description. But I will quote certain parts that show what a quack this man is, right?
Mm.
So the interviewer, Dr. I think Patty, Patti, Dr. Patty Taylor, whatever, Dr. Taylor. So, what do you do to get a woman to begin to get started on having one of these dates? Context is he refers to dates as essentially just literally a date where they meet Veteran, and Veteran brings these women to orgasm by some form of stimulation, right? It can be vaginal, it can be anal, whatever it is.
What is that lady a doctor of, the Dr. Taylor?
Yeah, no, very little information and also fully sus. I don't know what she does, right? The whole podcast page is fully like a scam website, right? But she did interview him, so at least we have that. She says, so what do you do to get a woman to begin to get started on having one of these dates? How would a woman know that she's going to be getting ready for an extended orgasm as opposed to a regular orgasm? You mentioned the word psychic energy now twice, so I'm getting that there must be something that happens right away. Veteran says, yes, it's all psychic. I know that sounds crazy, but it's like a level of awareness that we haven't really explored too much, and there's an energy field around the body. Everybody has it, every living thing. You can feel it yourself if you take your hand and move it slowly towards a woman, and you'll begin to feel it tingling in your hand and the warmth. I want to break the code for a second. to say that this is probably how predators feel. Because us normal people, when we take our hands to other people whom we are not intending to exploit, we don't feel jack. Okay. But because when you're a fucking predator, I'm sure the excitement takes over. Little asshole of a man. Anyway, he continues, if you pull it away, it goes down. The woman feels the same thing. What the woman feels is repulsion, Veteran. Anyway. And when you do that in the genital area or any other sexually collected area like the abdomen or the anus, earlobes, and the back of the woman's neck, they are all very sensitive areas. You can come a woman by just stroke her underneath her, by just stroking her underneath her earlobes. You don't even have to touch her body even further than that. I don't know what to say to this. Like, this is, I don't know how this man is famous. He's dead now, which is a good thing.
I was more
But
worried
I don't know
about
how
you
to.
turning into Yoda in the middle of that quote.
Yeah, that was badly written. It is like I had to make grammatical changes. Considering English is the only language he knows, he's
Either
very bad
that
at
or
it.
that you were having a stroke. Like I was, both were genuinely worrying.
No, I had to genuinely just correct the grammar in between, and it was uncomfortable. But anyway, another part of the podcast, Dr. Taylor again. I say doctor ironically here because I don't think she's qualified in jack shit. And also, she refers to herself as Dr. Patty Taylor in the transcripts. Anyway, so your point is that watching someone who's a master, such as yourself or probably other people, is going to be an enormous benefit. I am assuming this is how he made money. She continues, if I understand and you feel that psychic energy is of profound importance, what percentage is psychic energy and what percentage do you feel is technique in what you do at this point? So Veteran answers this, right? Veteran says, I would say over 95% psychic energy, and I have gotten some women I have done that I can do from across the room. It is.
What the fuck?
It's
What is
so
this Bluetooth fingering,
upsetting.
man? Like,
It's so
Imagine being
upsetting.
imagine being so precise with such a distance.
like
It is.
Charles Xavier is literally looking for him everywhere. Like he's a level 5 mutant. He's not X-Men, he's Sex-Men. My God.
Can you imagine the disappointment you feel when you pay for getting an orgasm and then there's this man just sitting on the other side of the room saying, I can do it telepathically? So upsetting this man is, my
He
God.
just
And
makes his
what is
enemies
this?
come into submission, dude. He'll just finger them into submission from across the room.
Also, what is this? What is this language? I have gotten some women I have done that I can do from across the room. What is this language?
This language reminds me of someone we all know is leading a nation.
All right, fuck.
This kind of
Yes.
language is is what
I'll
that
tell you
person has.
Actually,
what,
both nations.
I might be wrong. I might be wrong, but this almost sounds like a pseudo Rastafarian way of talking. Like if you notice, like a lot of Bob Marley lyrics are like that. But that is because the people over there talk like that. So that is not someone. This, I don't know if this guy is a white guy, or I'm assuming he's a white guy. I might
Well,
be wrong,
absolutely.
right?
He's
Yeah.
got to be a white guy.
Yeah, if a white guy is talking like that, then he's again appropriating a culture which is not his, and
Hmm.
I'm assuming that is the Rastafarian way of the reggae way of talking.
But
So
that is in reggae it fits because it's lyrical, it's musical. This is just normally conversational. It's horrifying. Anyway, he continues, without even touching them, you can just do it telepathically. I know it sounds crazy, but it does work. The training itself. Yeah,
Sounds crazy, but it works.
he himself
Sure,
is saying
sure, dude.
that.
Sure, dude.
The training itself, the important thing in teaching is teaching from a trained woman. Because once a woman sees another trained woman in a sustained orgasm, she knows it's possible. She's seen another woman do it. And she's smart enough to know that if other women can do it, she can do it too. When he talks about sustained orgasm, he has mentioned that there have been women he has brought into sustained orgasm for 3 hours plus, and can go on for longer.
Okay. How is the woman not dead?
Exactly. It just sounds like a nightmare.
Like,
3 hours worth of
Agreed.
orgasm sounds like a fucking nightmare.
how are they not just dying of sheer dehydration? Where is all that fluid coming from? Like, is he constantly pouring water down the throat also telepathically? Like, what is going on?
Telepathically.
I mean, I'm assuming he's making them orgasm telepathically. That's what at least he's propagating, right? So he must not be
No,
within
no.
reach to pour down water
Can.
also.
He can make them come telepathically. He can also make them orgasm through their anus, through their vagina, through their
All of that is
clitoris,
fine. All of that is
which
fine.
is
I buy
normal
that.
ways
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
yeah,
All of that is
all
fine.
normal ways of orgasming.
I'm genuinely concerned about the dehydration aspect. Like, for 3 hours, where is all that fluid coming from?
Um,
They're absorbing moisture from the
Yeah.
environment.
as I mentioned, there is very little coverage of what Vettelin did. I tried finding, and all I could find were mentions of him in Daedone's articles, like articles about Daedone. Right? So depressing. But again, this is the man again that Daedone claims is her mentor. Okay. And he says many, many more annoying things. And if you want to listen to the podcast or read the transcript, I will link it in the description. But I will move on to other problematic people in this saga,
Hmm.
right? And one person who's I was very upset that they really completely ignored him was Robert Kendall, right? If you remember while talking about OneTaste's origin story, I mentioned that OneTaste was founded by Daedone and Kendall, right? And while I saw an insane amount of media attention on Daedone, I saw basically nothing on Kendall, right? So I had to start looking it up. Kendall went out of the picture in 2014 by selling off his stake in OneTaste and went on to create his own consulting firm. Right. In one podcast that he appears in, he says that he did that to help other small and medium businesses in becoming successful. Right. He works today as a fractional CFO. And I checked out his LinkedIn, okay? It doesn't even address OneTaste and his role in it. Like
Hmm.
his career starts from 2014.
Hmm.
While in from 2005 to 2014, he was very much running this. Right. And he is doing quite well in life right now. Like he sells courses, he's invited to events, he's an author, he's all of that shit, right? He's doing quite well, which makes me extremely mad because the FBI investigation showed that the crazy exploitation of people was going on from at least 2008 when he was still very much a part of this. And
Hmm.
not just a part of this, he was a founder, right? And he faces no consequence whatsoever and just fails forward. There's literally nothing about him. All I could find about him is the work he does today. By the way, his Instagram bio says he's the modern mentor, Mantor. Just asshole tagline, like just an asshole tagline. So you have to be I this man pisses me off. His face is that of an asshole. He absolutely pisses me off. Right? It is very, very disappointing that there is no coverage on what I mean, maybe Kendall himself was exploited. Maybe he himself was in a bad shape, but there's literally nothing. And there was one podcast that I started listening to, but I had to stop because it annoyed me even further. He talks about his time at OneTaste and how after leaving OneTaste, his life almost fell apart. Poor little rich boy, your life fell apart. Like fuck off. Do you know how many women you harmed?
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely despicable, and not even a single newspaper actually taking up just a small part of his story. I don't know, like just mention what he's doing and who he was. Nothing. Okay. Same goes for the current CEO, Anjali Iyer. Okay.
Oh.
So, yeah, yeah, yeah. Indian origin, but American. She's American, right? So, the current CEO and owner of OneTaste, she has stood steadfastly behind Daedone and Chervitz through this entire case, right? And there's very, very, very little coverage about her as well, right? And considering the fact that One Taste still exists and Ayer is absolutely running the show, she in fact plans to make franchisees out of this fucking cult. It's really troublesome. It would be nice to have some coverage, some reportage on her. This is wild, right? And I mean, I was curious about who she is and what she's doing. Her LinkedIn shows that she used to be in the media industry. Uh, this is, I will say that this is the good part about talking about people who are today in like functioning in the work environment today is their LinkedIn
Hmm.
pages. You get some insight, uh, unlike historical figures, right? So her LinkedIn shows that she used to be in the media industry. Then she left it because of some autoimmune disease that again I don't have any details about because nobody reports on her. She went on to blog and do some photography. And then the next job role is buying OneTaste from Daedone and becoming CEO. Okay. This should also tell you about the qualifications of most CEOs, how people become CEOs. I just want to emphasize on my long-standing belief, right? So anyway, because there's barely any coverage on Iyer, I had to rely on an article from a really strange website called awesomeindia.in. It is fully right wing coded, dude. It is fully right wing coded and has no legitimate presence. I doubt the authenticity of literally everything they say. But because this is literally the only source I have to quote from it, right? I cannot help it. So they did a profile on it, right? And I want to read out a part of the profile. Anjali Iyer's story begins with a rich tapestry of cultural and spiritual influences. Her father, a South Indian Brahmin from Mumbai, emigrated to the United States in 1969 with just $8 in his pocket. Oh my God. I, no, friend. Do you know how much it costs to go to US? Or no Brahmin is going to fucking US to do menial labor, right? They are with $8 in his pocket. No, might be what $8 was left after, I don't know, paying of rent or something like that. Absolutely ridiculous beginning of the story. Anyway, he eventually rose to become the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, embodying the immigrant success story. Every word of this pisses me off.
What is the company?
They don't mention.
What's the name of the father?
They don't mention. But when you look up her father, like I saw three different names come up.
It's
Anyway,
okay.
the article continues. Aya's mother, whose roots trace back to the Mayflower, brought a deep American heritage to the family. Basically, a rich fucking family, right? Together, they created a household where spirituality was paramount, with both parents practicing transcendental meditation and other advanced techniques since
Oh, this
1971.
this reminds me of the Beatles when they had come to India.
uh,
They also went
yeah,
for
yeah.
this. I forgot the name of Maharishi something.
The one in Rishikesh, no?
Yeah.
I
They
also
also
forgot.
faced the inside info is that they also faced the similar experience. Not all of them, but I think I forgot the name, but similar thing happened with them also in the ashram, and that was the reason half of the Beatles they left Rishikesh early, and I think some remained, but they stayed for music. Like they wanted to explore Indian music. But
Okay.
yeah, but something similar also happened with them in Rishikesh and Ashram.
We also have a tradition of psychedelics. I don't know how much of it was transcendental meditation and how much of it was fucking bhang. I don't know. Uh, but sure, whatever anybody wants to believe, I have no proof either way. Right? Anyway, the article continues. Growing up in Connecticut, Iyer was immersed in the stories of Mahabharata and Ramayana, two of India's most revered epics. These narratives, filled with the lessons of dharma, righteousness, and moral duty, shaped her worldview from a young age. Despite being one of the few Indian American children in her predominantly white community, Iyer found strength in her cultural heritage. Even though I stood out from my peers, she reflects, I always felt like I knew something they didn't.
Yeah.
The article continues. This spiritual foundation, combined with her father's lessons in business ethics and integrity, set the stage
This
for Iyer's future endeavors. Her upbringing taught her the importance of staying true to one's principles even in the face of adversity, a lesson that would prove crucial in her later years. It is every word makes it difficult to take her seriously. Right? It is. They are trying so hard to make such a comfortable life seem difficult. Such a great life she had, dude. But in in my opinion, it does explain a lot about one, a photographer buying out a company for fucking $12 million, but also about facing enough sexual repression to turn to this complete scan of oming, right? So readily, because
Mhm.
she was first a customer of this cult, right? Then she took it over, right? But what I find especially scary is what the article says about the future of OneTaste. It says, despite the ongoing controversies, Iyer continues to champion orgasmic meditation as a powerful tool for personal and collective transformation. She points to the more than 13,000 people worldwide who have learned the practice and 6 peer-reviewed studies that support its benefits. Same peer reviewed studies that I was talking about at the top of the episode. I have not gone into it. I am pretty sure that it is about orgasming and not orgasmic meditation. I need to get into it separately, but stay away from this organization. They have no scientific basis whatsoever. Right? Even if they do, the scientific basis would be of the benefits of orgasming and not about the benefits of being part of a cult. Right? So massive problems here. Anyway, the article continues. For Iyer, Om is not just a business, it is a mission to bring healing and empowerment to as many people as possible. In her leadership of OneTaste, Iyer embodies the lessons of her upbringing, principles of integrity, spiritual depth, and the courage to stand up for what she believes in. She draws inspiration from her Indian heritage, particularly the stories of the Ramayana, where an entire nation goes to war to defend the dignity of a woman. Oh my god!
Which part of the story is that? I genuinely don't know.
I think
The
she's talking
part,
about Mahabharata.
Ah, okay.
This is so crazy. And nobody in their right mind will call either Ramayana or Mahabharata as anything to do with protecting the dignity of women. Uh, it might also be a Rava. It also might also be Ramayan because that was to bring like to save Sita from Ravan.
Sita. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But still,
Okay. Okay. I
Yeah,
don't know if many people know this part of the Ramayana, but as soon as Sita was back, Ram rejected her and she went
yeah,
to burn herself in a pyre.
yep.
Okay, so I don't know what we're talking about here.
As is the case with all religious stories, okay, of every single religion, Ours is also pretty fucked up. Right? It's absolutely, please do not take lessons from this. These are horrifying stories, right? It's
Yeah.
terrible. It's also very, very, I mean, in line with what I know about people who are extremely right wing, they cherry pick the really, really great parts and completely gloss over the terrible parts. So that's what she's also doing. And also, to be fair, she is defending the dignity of women as much as Ramayan did. So I guess I guess that fits, right? Uh, Anyway, she says, they cannot win, she says with conviction. I will take the example of Indian American women willing to stand up for their dharma and apply them until justice is served. Absolutely fucking ridiculous woman. Anyway, the article continues. As Iyer continues to navigate the complexities of running a controversial company, she remains focused on her ultimate goal to create a world where women are empowered to explore their sexuality and embrace their fullest potential. Her journey is a testament to the power of resilience, spirituality, and the unwavering pursuit of one's truth, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. Not a single challenge in her life was insurmountable, friend. She comes from a very comfortable background. She could buy off a company as a photographer and a blogger for $12 million. She's doing fine. There's no insurmountable challenge in her life. Sure, she has an autoimmune disease, but she has a great support system working for it. Now we come to the final special mention of a person who, while was not involved in this right from the beginning, or is not as deeply ingrained in the business, but deserves talking about. His name is Judah Engelmeyer. Do you all recognize this name? He was hired as
Nope.
the crisis communications expert. He's a PR guy for Daedone and Sherwitz.
No, I haven't heard this name. Is it relevant?
Yes, because he was also the PR person for Harvey Weinstein after he was accused of sexual abuse by multiple women. He was also hired by Anna Sorokin, the infamous con artist and fraudster. There's a Netflix show about her as well, and a bunch of other quite famous frauds. Okay, so Mr. Engelmeyer very clearly has a type, right? And for Daedon's case, Engelmeyer's strategy was to go wildly aggressive with building the narrative that the US justice system was out to get Daedone and Sherwitz, right? I am taking from a New York Times article about, the latest in New York Times, the latest in their coverage, where once the case was already going on and everything, New York Times had to do very little actual journalistic work. They started reporting on things that were actually going on instead of what they should have done probably 20 years back. But anyway, this article states, when they were convicted of forced labor conspiracy, two leaders of OneTaste, a lifestyle company devoted to the female orgasm, used a fierce public relations campaign to claim they were victims of the justice system. Then that fervent advocacy helped land the women Nicole Daedone and Rachel Sherwitz in jail. After weeks of sordid testimony, the judge, Diane Gujarati, specifically cited the public effort before refusing to grant the defendants bail before their September sentencing, an uncommonly strict requirement for first time non violent criminals, and one that the government had not sought. So basically, Engelmeyer's public crisis handling, strategy pissed off the judge so much that she put them in prison and did not give them bail before the sentencing. So legitimately a fantastic outcome, to be very honest. Right? The article continues. Judah Engelmeyer, the women's lead publicist, had written online posts that the judge found troubling, including one that featured a swastika superimposed over the Justice Department's logo. You think a swastika is helpful to the defendants? Judge Gujarati asked Jennifer Bonjean, a lawyer for Miss Daedone, at a hearing on June 10th in federal court in Brooklyn. We are talking 2025 or 2024. The article details out a lot of the responses of the lawyers and everything. The lawyers also were like Bonjean was, I think, Bonjean or another lawyer was also a lawyer for Harvey Weinstein. So it's all the same circle jerk, you know. Terrible people flock to terrible people. The article continues. Mr. Engelmeyer, who was not in the courtroom during the bail hearing, said in an interview that he viewed the judge's decision as a personal attack on his character. I just want all of us to step back and just let this register. The man who represents, who tries to repair the damage to the reputations of these fuck all people, thinks he has character that does not, that has any good in it, that does not deserve to be attacked. That's wild. What character, friend? You have no character. It's really strange to me. Before I go on to continuing the article, I just want to give you some context. There were also accusations, and the defendants' lawyers admitted this, that supporters of Daedone and Sherwitz and supporters of OneTaste intimidated the witnesses. They would follow them. They would be, they would harass them. It was bad, right? The lawyers accepted it, but Engelmeyer denied any claims of witness intimidation, and he said he had not chosen the swastika image for the post. He posted it, but he had not chosen the image for the post. Right? The article continues. Judge Gujarati doesn't have the privilege of not being mentioned in the press, Mr. Engelmeyer said, adding without offering evidence that the judge had entered the trial with an axe to grind. Though Judge Gujarati honed in on Engelmeyer's own writing, the overall media blitz was a conspicuous aspect of Miss Daedone and Miss Sherwitz's defense outside the courtroom. The women found support in conservative leaning news and opinion outlets. So, unsurprisingly, the right wing is on the wrong side of history yet again. It is really strange to me how the right wing continues to do this, because this is about women's empowerment, and it is, at least that's what OneTaste pretends it is. It is actually not, but it is about women's empowerment, and it is about women's orgasms. You'd think the right wing was against it. It typically is. I don't know how they just have to choose the worst side. It's just the right wing is incapable of choosing to stand with things that are remotely good in this world. Like anybody who's trying to do some good, the right wing will be like, nope, this is not okay. Even if it goes against my core beliefs, it's not okay. So, yet again, we find a lot of conservative leaning news coming out in favor of these women. Since the sentencing, also, it's been quite bad. They are going to apply for president's pardon. Might get it. Fuck knows what will
It's
happen.
not might.
So,
They 100% get it.
right?
That guy
It's
is
just,
doling out pardons like free candy on Halloween's too.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah, very strange. But yeah, this was about the weird sex cult OneTaste. It was about the people behind them, and it was about the frustratingly little that we know about some very, very important people associated with this. And I really hope that there is more actual journalistic coverage. I am not a fucking journalist. I do not have the investigating skills or capabilities. I have not spoken with anybody for this. Nobody will speak with me for this. Real journalists need to really do their fucking job. Now that the media is already talking about this, it makes sense to talk about all of these different people, but we don't see anything. So That
Maybe you
was
can try psychically investigating from across the room, Ashmita. Give it a try once.
across to another part
It
of the world
absolutely works.
itself. Yes, it sounds crazy, but it works.
It works.
Anyway, this brings me to the recommendation of the week.
Recommendation time.
And because I did listen to this entire podcast, that's what I want to recommend because I think it's, because I think it's very, very well done. It's called Orgasm Cult, The Orgasm Cult by BBC. Typically, I wouldn't recommend anything by BBC because BBC is a fuck all news outlet.
Yeah.
It's a
I was
genocide.
surprised. I was
Yeah,
surprised that you, yeah.
I also fucking had to take to read the New York Times articles. I had to take a membership, a
Oh,
subscription of New York Times, which I will now delete. Because again, New York Times also I don't support. But this podcast is really well done. And one of the reasons I'm also recommending this podcast is because it is it's now under legal contention by Daedone and her team. So it helps listening to what the victims had to say. And I think more than the Netflix documentary, the podcast does a better job of it. So I would strongly recommend it. But if you do want to see how this whole thing pans out, like you do want the visuals, then you should watch the Netflix shows. The I mean, of course, not. They're not going to make it like you're not going to be able to see almost porn, but the entire setup is quite wild. So yeah, that's my recommendation of the week. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to our socials on Instagram, on YouTube. Please follow the podcast on whichever podcast platform you listen to us on. If you want to write to us, if you have suggestions of topics, or if you want to correct aspects that we have spoken about in the episodes. We don't have any fact checkers, we don't have a team behind us. It is us sitting down and doing this. So it is very, very likely that we have missed out on certain things. So if you want to correct us, or if you want to suggest topics, if you want to just show us some love, you can write to us at don'tknowdocare1@gmail.com. One is numerical, or you can DM us or comment on our posts on YouTube or Instagram. The handle is common. It's at DKDC Podcasts. Also, the most important part, if you like what you hear, please share these episodes and the podcast with your colleagues, with your friends, with your family, whoever you think will enjoy this. That's how we are reaching all of our listeners today, and it helps us immensely when you share
yeah.
the podcast with them. So
We
that's
would
it.
also
That's it
appreciate
for the
if you
week.
could give us some ratings on whatever podcast platform of your choice,
Yeah.
preferably 5 star, but if not, at least 4 star. Anything below that, don't bother doing it. It's fine. So
Yes, that
yeah,
one person who gave 1 star on the Israeli PR episode. Actually, that is fine. I
no,
enjoyed
that was objectively
riling up
funny. That
somebody.
was objectively funny.
Yeah.
I am not against that. That is fine.
I enjoyed riling that person up, whoever that was. That was great.
Yeah.
But that is us, and we will see you. We are, as you know, we by now that we are back from our break, and we are going to continue seeing you every week till our next break, which ideally shouldn't be for at least a few months. So we'll see you next time. Till then, bye bye.